The fluorescent lights in the recovery room felt like daggers through my skull. I'd been unconscious for 3 days, they said. Emergency surgery after a motorcycle accident that should have killed me. My brother Marcus sat beside the bed, his face a mask of concern that I'd seen 1,000 times before. "Thank God you're okay, Iris," he whispered, squeezing my hand. "The doctors said it was touch and go. Your appendix burst from the impact." I touched the bandage across my lower abdomen, wincing. The incision felt longer than it should have, stretching from my side to nearly my spine. But the morphine made everything fuzzy, and Marcus was already talking about insurance forms and discharge papers. "Don't worry about anything," he said, gathering his expensive leather jacket. "I handled everything while you were out. The medical bills, the paperwork. That's what big brothers are for." Marcus had always been the golden child. 12 years older, successful investment banker, the son who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. After they died in that car crash 2 years ago, he'd become my reluctant guardian, always reminding me how much my existence cost him. The first red flag came 3 weeks later during my follow-up appointment. Dr. Peterson frowned at my chart, then looked at my healing incision with confusion. "This scarring pattern is unusual," she murmured, tracing the line with her finger. "Much more extensive than typical appendix surgery, and positioned differently. Maybe there were complications?" I suggested, but doubt was already creeping in. She ordered new scans, and when the results came back, her face went white. "Iris, I need you to stay calm. According to these images, you still have your appendix. But you're missing your left kidney." The world tilted sideways. "That's impossible," Marcus said. "Someone removed a kidney during your surgery. This wasn't appendicitis." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Someone deliberately took your kidney while you were unconscious." I stumbled out of the clinic in a daze, my mind racing. Marcus had handled everything. Marcus had signed the forms. Marcus had chosen the surgeon, a Dr. Volkov who worked out of a private clinic across town. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment staring at the medical records Dr. Peterson had given me. The surgery authorization bore a signature that looked like mine but wasn't quite right. The pre-op notes mentioned emergency nephrectomy due to trauma-related damage, but the accident report showed no injuries to my torso area. I called Marcus, hands shaking. "You sound paranoid," he said when I questioned the discrepancies. "You were dying, Iris. Dr. Volkov saved your life. Sometimes these procedures get complicated." "Then why do I still have my appendix?" Silence stretched between us like a chasm. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was different. Colder. "You're being hysterical. Maybe you should see someone about these delusions." He hung up before I could respond. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I broke into Marcus's apartment using the spare key he didn't know I'd copied. His laptop sat open on the dining table, and what I found there made my stomach drop through the floor. Bank statements showing a $50,000 deposit on the exact date of my surgery. Emails with Dr. Volkov discussing the procedure and finding a compatible donor. Text messages with someone called Victor about the girl, and keeping her sedated longer than necessary. But the most damning evidence was a contract, signed in Marcus's careful handwriting. A sale agreement for a human kidney to a private buyer in Eastern Europe. The donor was listed as I, Sterling, my initials. I'd been sold. My own brother had sold my kidney while I lay unconscious and helpless. I photographed everything with trembling hands, then got out of there before Marcus returned. That evening, I called the police, but the detective who took my statement looked skeptical. "This is a serious accusation, Miss Sterling. Organ theft is a federal crime. Are you sure you're not misunderstanding some medical situation? I have bank records. I have emails. I have the contract. Alleged emails and documents that you obtained illegally by breaking into your brother's home." He closed his notebook. "Look, family disputes can get messy. Maybe talk to a lawyer about this civil matter." I left the police station feeling more alone than ever. But as I sat in my car, something crystallized inside me. If the system wouldn't help me, I'd help myself. I spent the next 6 months learning everything I could about Dr. Volkov and his clinic. Turned out he wasn't licensed in the United States, but operated under a web of shell companies that made it nearly impossible to trace. His patients were desperate people who paid cash for procedures that legitimate hospitals wouldn't touch. I got a job as a medical assistant at a real hospital, where I befriended Janet, a nurse in the transplant unit. During our lunch breaks, I pumped her for information about organ procurement, black market operations, and the kind of evidence that might actually stick in court. There's always a paper trail, she told me one day. These operations require specific equipment, compatible blood work, post-surgical monitoring. Someone somewhere has records. I also started following Marcus. His lifestyle had improved dramatically since my surgery. New car, expensive clothes, frequent trips to Atlantic City. But I noticed something else. He'd been losing weight, looking pale and tired. Dark circles under his eyes, a slight yellow tinge to his skin. During one of my surveillance sessions, I saw him leaving a different medical clinic, this one specializing in kidney disease. That's when I made a discovery that changed everything. Through my hospital connections, I learned that Marcus had been diagnosed with late-stage kidney disease 6 months before my accident. His organs were failing, and he needed a transplant urgently. But his lifestyle, drinking, drugs, poor health, had put him at the bottom of every transplant list. He hadn't sold my kidney for money. He'd sold it because he needed to prove he could procure organs outside official channels. It was his audition for the black market network that would eventually provide him with an illegal transplant. But the beautiful thing about karma is its perfect timing. Marcus's condition deteriorated rapidly over the following months. His skin turned yellow, his body swelled with fluid his remaining kidney couldn't filter. I watched from across the street as ambulances came to his building twice in 1 week. Through Janet, I learned he'd been admitted to the hospital where I worked. End-stage renal failure. Without a transplant within weeks, he would die. That's when he called me. Iris. His voice was barely a whisper. I need to see you. It's important. I found him in room 417, hooked to machines that were doing the work his body couldn't. He looked 20 years older, his face gaunt and gray. I know what you think you know, he began, but I held up my hand. I know exactly what I know, Marcus. I have the contracts, the emails, the bank records. I know you sold my kidney to finance your own illegal transplant pipeline. His eyes filled with tears, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in years. I was dying, Iris. I am dying. I thought if I could prove myself to Volkov's network, they'd help me. But the kidney they got me didn't work. It was rejected within weeks. So you mutilated your sister for nothing. Please. His voice cracked. You have to help me. You're my only family. You're my only hope. I stared at this man who had raised me, protected me, and ultimately betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. He wanted my forgiveness. He wanted my help. He wanted me to be the sister he'd never bothered to be a brother to. You're right, I said finally. I am your only hope. His face brightened with pathetic gratitude. And that's why this is going to hurt so much. I pulled out my phone and dialed the FBI tip line I'd memorized months ago. As it rang, I looked Marcus in the eyes. Special Agent Morrison? This is Iris Sterling. I have evidence of an international organ trafficking ring, and I'm sitting next to the man who can give you everything you need to shut it down. Marcus tried to reach for my phone, but the machines held him back. His monitor began beeping frantically as his heart rate spiked. What are you doing? He gasped. I'm teaching you about consequences, I said calmly. You taught me that family will destroy you for money. Now I'm teaching you that justice doesn't care about blood relations. The FBI arrived within hours. Dr. Volkov was arrested at his clinic along with 6 associates. The international organ trafficking network that had operated for over a decade collapsed within weeks. Dozens of victims came forward, and several corrupt officials were implicated. Marcus was charged with conspiracy, organ trafficking, and aggravated assault. Even from his hospital bed, he became the star witness in a case that made national headlines. I testified at his trial 6 months later. The prosecutor asked me to describe the impact of my brother's betrayal. He didn't just steal my kidney, I said, looking directly at Marcus as he sat in his wheelchair, still dependent on dialysis. He stole my ability to trust family. He stole my sense of safety. He stole my faith that the people who are supposed to protect us won't destroy us for personal gain. The judge sentenced Marcus to 15 years in federal prison. By the time he gets out, his kidney disease will have progressed beyond treatment. But here's the thing about karma that Marcus never understood. It's not just about punishment. Sometimes it's about restoration. The civil suit against Dr. Volkov's network resulted in a settlement that covered my medical expenses, and then some. But more importantly, the attention from the case connected me with other victims, people who understood what I'd been through. I used the settlement money to start a foundation that helps victims of organ trafficking navigate the legal system and access proper medical care. Janet left her hospital job to work with me full-time, and we've helped over 100 people in the past 3 years. Last week, I got a letter from Marcus in prison. He's dying, he wrote. The dialysis isn't working anymore. He wanted to see me one last time, to apologize properly. I wrote back with just one line. You taught me that family is a choice, not an obligation. I choose not to be your sister anymore. I never sent it. Some lessons are more powerful when delivered in silence. Instead, I drove to the cemetery where our parents are buried and left flowers on their graves. Then I went home to the family I'd built, Janet, the other survivors, the community of people who understand that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's cruelty. Marcus gave me a scar that will never fully fade. But he also gave me something he never intended, the strength to survive anything, even the people who are supposed to love us most. And that, I've learned, is a gift more valuable than any organ he could have stolen. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. Marcus had died in the prison medical ward alone, his body finally succumbing to the disease he'd tried so desperately to escape. The warden asked if I wanted to claim the body. No, I said without hesitation. He stopped being my brother the day he decided I was worth more dead than alive. I hung up and went back to work, helping the latest victim of trafficking file her insurance claims. Outside my office window, spring was coming to the city, and everything was starting to bloom again. Some stories don't end with reconciliation or forgiveness. Sometimes they end with the simple recognition that surviving is its own form of victory, and that the family you choose is always stronger than the one that chooses to destroy you.